I would like to welcome everyone. I'm Melanie Carlos, Executive Director of xMinds, the organization hosting tonight's event. Though we are hosting MCPS speakers tonight, I do want to let everyone know that we are completely independent. In fact, we advocate on behalf of families for greater transparency with the schools. Our goal tonight for the primers on MCPS placements is to bring to you a thorough and clear review of all the services and programs that MCPS offers to middle and high school autistic students. Our speakers are all MCPS staff, administrators, program and instructional specialists, and psychologists who know these programs inside and out. We're very grateful to them for being here to share what they know. Just as there is a wide range in the support needs of students who are autistic, there is a correspondingly wide range of programs that MCPS offers to support these kids. The first half will cover all the different diploma-bound placements, learning and academic disabilities, autism connections, autism resource services, bridge. And the final presentations will cover learning for independence, school community-based services, classic autism services, extensions, Rock Terrace School, and for the first time, we're welcoming transition services. Tonight's presentations will cover the programs in this order, from those providing the least support to those providing the most support. Although, please remember that in practice, there is overlap among the programs. We have tried to minimize jargon because we really want everything to be understandable. But if you hear something you don't understand, please ask for clarification in the chat. I also want to acknowledge that several key MCPS administrators may be joining our two simultaneous sessions. I'd like to welcome Dr. Margaret Cage, Chief Student Support Officer of MCPS's Division of Specialized Support Services, Dr. Tyree Jenkins, Executive Director for the Division of Specialized Support Services, and finally, Chris Erickson, Supervisor of Autism Spectrum Disorders Services. Thank you for being with us tonight. Now, you will have lots of opportunities for questions, a break in the middle and one at the end, but please write your questions for the presenters in the chat at any time, and we'll read them out loud to the presenters when we get to the next Q&A break. Alternatively, when we get to the Q&A, you can use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and we will call on you to ask your question out loud. Just a word about questions. The presenters tonight know all about the programs they run, but they don't know your child. So the questions they can answer are questions about their programs and their services, but they will not be able to answer questions about where your child will fit best. Keep in mind that each location or school may differ, and students' IEPs and schedules are indeed individualized, as they should be, so their experiences may vary. The good news is that tonight you are where you should be to learn about the various placement options. xMinds has hosted this event with the help of MCPS for 16 years, so that you will be armed with this essential information and you will be better equipped to assess where your child might be best served. We have asked the speakers to provide you tonight with a level of detail that frankly is hard to find. Ultimately, where your child is placed will be a decision made by your IEP team. The more you know about your child's placement options, the better you can advocate for your child when it comes to these decisions. Finally, before we start the presentation, I want to quickly mention we are recording this in both English and Spanish. We will make the recordings and presentations available to you in a few days. All right, so to get us started, I want to welcome Ms. Jada Langston, Director of the Department of Special Education Services. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Ms. Langston, you are muted. Let me see if I can get her to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, I was just talking away over here. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's great to see so many familiar faces. I'm excited to be here with you so that you can learn more about programming and just like Melanie shared, how you can be more informed when you attend your child's IEP meetings. So tonight we're going to share an overview of special education services within MCPS. We will also inform you of the continuum of special education services provided by our diploma services and alternate learning outcomes. As Melanie shared, we'll go from the least restricted to the most restricted opportunities to support your child appropriately. Next slide. Again, I bring you greetings tonight on behalf of Dr. Cage, our Chief of Student Specialized Services, as well as Dr. Lisa Gilliard-Jones, our Associate Superintendent of Special Education, along with Dr. Tyree Jenkins, our Executive Director. We are happy to be here tonight to share with you about our special education services, our mission, our vision and values, as well as our organizational chart and our priorities for this year. Next slide. And so we want to ensure that everyone knows who's in the seats now. So we have an org chart that we are sharing with all. Our Chief of Student Support is Dr. Margaret Cage. Our Executive Director is Dr. Tyree Jenkins. And our Associate Superintendent is Dr. Lisa Gilliard-Jones, along with our Fiscal Supervisor, Mr. Rob Bird. Next slide. We also have our Student Services, which provides services throughout the county, starting with our Counseling Services Director is Dr. Karen Cruz. Our Psychological Services Director is Dr. Christina Connolly Chester. Our Director of Engagement, Behavior, and Health in Academics is Shauna K. Joinby, along with her Supervisor of Social Workers and Wellbeing is Stephanie Wallace, along with our Director of Student Support and Attendance Services, Steve Ness. Again, you have me here, Director of Special Education Services. Along with my team who will be speaking this evening, you have Ashley Doyle, who is our Supervisor of Alternate Learning Outcomes. Ms. Kristen Eckerson is our Supervisor of Autism. We have Dr. Webb with us for a short time. She's going to be retiring. We are so excited that we've had so many wonderful years with her, who is our Supervisor of Special Education Services. Kelly Giron has moved on. So we are looking for that position. And then Pat Cochran is our Supervisor of Transition Services. We also have on the preschool side tonight, Erica Williams, our Director of Pre-K Programs, along with her directors, Supervisor Samantha Smith for Vision and Hearing. We're looking for Bill McGrath's position, Shelley McCall, who is our Supervisor of Speech Language Services, as well as Faith for Supervisor for Child Find and Early Childhood Disabilities. All right, so we'd like to share a little bit about our mission, vision, and our strategic alignment. Next slide. Our program is very much aligned with the MCPS strategic plan that Dr. Taylor has. Our mission is breaking barriers and building futures. We want to ensure that we're building high-impact, inclusive supports that empower engaged students with disabilities to be able to engage fully, think critically, and develop their resilience to thrive in learning and life. Our vision is also success for all. Students with disabilities are supported to achieve meaningful academic growth and graduating and entering the workforce ready to thrive with confidence, the skills, and resilience they need to be strong community members in their community. And our values are in action. We are guided by learning, respect, relationships, excellence, and equity, the same as the MCPS strategic plan. We strive to create environments where students with disabilities are included and supported for success. Next slide. We have 3 strategic priorities that we're focusing on this year. We want to close the achievement gap for our students with disabilities, that in the math and reading areas that we are reducing the gap between their peers alike in general education settings. We're also focusing on the disproportionality of our African American students receiving special education services, also in the areas of suspensions as well as identification in special education services. And lastly, we want to expand and support inclusive opportunities for students who receive educational services in the least restricted environment. We want to ensure that most of our students have the opportunity to be as much around their peers in general education setting as possible. And so our goal is to reduce that least restrictive environment as much as we can with the correct supports that students need to be successful in those areas. Next slide. Our equity commitments. The Division of Specialized Services is a comprehensive multi-departmental sector of Montgomery County Public Schools. And we are responsible for special education instruction, student support services, and work related to well-being, learning, and achievement. We look to develop, manage, and continuously evaluate a wide range of programs and initiatives designed to meet the needs of our diverse learners, including special education, early childhood identification of services. Our work is grounded in the belief that equitable access to high-quality instruction works for all. We want to ensure that we address disproportionality by actively monitoring and dismantling the long-standing national trend of over-identifying students of color having emotional or intellectual disabilities and disproportionate suspensions of the students. We want to build capacity through professional learning by providing ongoing learning opportunities and job-embedded coaching for school-based staff on a multi-tiered system of support, our MTSS, our child find process, and our nonviolent community crisis intervention, CPI, positive behavior interventions and supports, and implicit and explicit bias and restorative justice. We want to strengthen academic outcomes for students receiving special education services through cross-divisional collaboration, ensuring that innovative instructional practices are implemented with fidelity. We want to expand equitable access to critical resources and opportunities, including psychological assessments, post-secondary readiness, such as FAFSA completion, and targeted interventions for chronically absent students. Next slide. You will see our program is aligned with the strategic plan, the blueprint for the state of Maryland, and Maryland MSDE also included the Maryland Transforms. Next slide. We know that we have challenges in special education in the areas of achievement and readiness, equity and inclusion, and accountability. When we look at achievement and readiness, we want to ensure that student proficiency rates below state targets are an area of focus. We want wide achievement gaps between students with IEPs and all students to narrow. And we want pre-K and PEP readiness indicators are currently far below expectations, with only 30% in inclusive settings versus 64%, which is our target. We're also looking at equity and inclusion, where the areas of limited access to least restricted environment has been missed across all grade spans. There's an overrepresentation of students in restricted placements. There's a disproportionality of students, Black and Brown students, with IEPs facing higher suspension rates and expulsion rates. And our parent survey results showing gaps in engagement, especially among families of our preschool and school-age children. And then there's accountability. There's a sharp increase in state complaints. In the last year, 2 years, from 20 to 125 in the last 2 years, and due process requests from 200 to 2,172 in the 2025 school year. Recurring violations in IEP development and service delivery and evaluation timelines. Also, overuse of alternate assessments and excessive restraint use, and also a need for stronger accountability systems to ensure fidelity of implementation. Next slide. As a way to increase and strategies for improvement in the areas of achievement and readiness, equity and inclusion, and compliance and accountability, our overall goal is clear: to improve outcomes for students with disabilities by closing achievement gaps, reducing disproportionality in discipline, and expanding inclusive opportunities in the least restricted environment. We will achieve through this evidence-based instruction, data-driven monitoring, professional learning, and strong family and community engagement. To accomplish this, our work is anchored in three key priorities: the student performance, disproportionality, and inclusive opportunities. When we look at student performance, we want to ensure that our goal is to increase proficiency rates with students with disabilities by 10% over the next 3 years, while also reducing the achievement gaps by 5% each year. To achieve this, we are implementing targeted interventions across all schools, providing quarterly coaching to special education teachers, and monitoring IEP goal progress on a regular basis to ensure alignment with grade level expectations. Our disproportionality. We know our data shows that Black and African American students with IEPs face a higher risk of expulsion. Our goal is to reduce that by 2% by 2027. This will be accomplished by requiring annual disproportionality action plans from identified schools, training 100% of staff in restorative practices at high suspension schools, and leveraging real-time data dashboards to monitor discipline trends quarterly and make timely adjustments. In the area of inclusive opportunities, our goal is to increase the number of students with disabilities being educated in general classrooms by 10% by 2027. We'll achieve this by expanding co-teaching and inclusive models across all schools, ensuring that at least 90% of educators receive annual training in inclusive practices and assistive technology, creating more consistent opportunities for two-way engagement with families, with each school hosting at least 2 engagement opportunities every year. Together with these priorities, our student performance, our disproportionality, and inclusive opportunities represent the foundation of our plan. They align directly with the MCPS strategic plan, the Blueprint for Maryland, and the Maryland Transforms, ensuring that we not only meet the compliance expectations, but also deliver on our commitment to equity and excellence for every student. Next slide. And some of the opportunities that we're currently doing in professional learning align with our performance, our present levels for goal writing, our restorative justice, behavior and discipline strategies, training in lieu of suspensions, wraparound services, partnership, best practices for developing and implementing FBAs and VIPs, cultural competence training, and utilizing co-teaching as a strategy for providing specially designed instruction. And that concludes our mission and vision and our values and our strategic plan for special education for the 25-26 school year. I will now turn it over to share with you all the different services we have for our students with autism.
Thank you, Ms. Langston. I just want to introduce Sarah Kayo. She is coordinator of the Division of Specialized Support Services. And she's coordinator for Learning and Academic Disability Services. My apologies. Thank you, Sarah, for being here.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Kayo, and I'm one of the special education coordinators for the cross-functional teams. And specifically, I support the Einstein and Wheaton clusters. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about learning and academic disability services. Next slide, please. So, Learning and Academic Disabilities Services, or LAD, as we frequently call it, are services that are available in every MCPS middle school and high school. We consider this to be our least restrictive setting. And these services are all special education services are determined by the IEP team. And so the process starts with the IEP team, and then once a school team has determined, include a school IEP team, including the parents, have determined the level of services that a student requires, that dictates where the services can be provided. So kind of an overview for how we get there, but LAD is our least restrictive setting. we go to the next slide. So learning and academic disabilities, or LAD services, are designed to support students who have educational disabilities while providing meaningful access to the general education curriculum in a student's neighborhood or home school. Like I previously said, LAD services are available in every secondary school within MCPS, ensuring consistency and equitable access to supports across the district. LAD isn't a specific classroom, but it's a set of services that are determined by the IEP team. The majority of students who receive services in learning and academic disabilities spend most of their day in the general education setting with their non-disabled peers. And it promotes access to grade level curriculum, social interaction, and a sense of belonging. Lab services are somewhat flexible, and students receive can receive a combination of services inside the general education setting with some targeted services outside of the general education setting as needed. For example, a student may receive services in a co-taught English and a co-taught math class within a general education setting with both a general education teacher and a special education teacher or paraeducator in that classroom, providing those specially designed instruction together. And then that same student may also have a self-contained resource class and reading intervention. So the services are somewhat flexible based on a student's need, but are primarily delivered within the general education setting. And each student services are determined by the IEP team based on what is necessary for a student to make progress towards their IEP goals and objectives. Next slide, please. So specifically for students with autism, LAD services are non-categorical. So we serve students with a range of disabilities in LAD, and that includes students with autism. Classroom instruction can be delivered by a general education teacher, a special education teacher, or a paraeducator, often through co-teaching models. And the goal is for students to make progress in the general education setting and progress towards their IEP goals and objectives. Some students, like I said before, may have a resource class, and I see in the chat there's a question. A resource class is a class where students are specifically working on IEP goals and objectives, such as executive functioning, social skills, learning to manage their workload, learning to potentially check their grades, monitor those long-term assignments. A lot of those softer skills that and studentship that students need to have in order to access the curriculum. Oftentimes, resource classes are addressing those executive functioning and social goals on an IEP. It can also give staff the opportunity to pre-teach concepts or reteach concepts that are coming up within the curriculum. Let's see. Lab support also includes any related services that are outlined on a student's IEP and provide supplementary aids, services, and accommodations for students, and sometimes assistive technology if that's identified on a student's IEP. In terms of co-teaching, there are different types of co-teaching models. It could be two teachers teaching a class together. We call that team teaching. There could be parallel teaching going on in the classroom where there are two teachers teaching the same concept, but teaching it in a different way. There could be a pull-aside small group of students who may need a reteaching or pre-teaching opportunity within the classroom. Or there could be a teacher or paraeducator providing a one teach, one assist model where one teacher is teaching the lesson for everyone, and then a para or special educator is floating and providing targeted support. It really depends on the needs of the particular lesson. Overall, ultimately, LAD services are about ensuring that students can participate, learn, and achieve alongside their peers with the supports and specialized instruction that they need to thrive. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jill DeSantos to share about Autism Connection services.
Hello, good evening. I'm Jill DeSanto. I'm one of the autism program specialists supporting secondary connections. Also with me is Robin Daisy.
Hi, I'm Robin Daisy. I'm an instructional specialist with autism, but I'm going to let Jill talk first about Autism Connections.
So to summarize the profile of students and some of the characteristics of the students we serve, many students on the spectrum can and should be served in their home school. Autism Connection services are designed to meet the needs of those students who have not been successful in their home school despite intervention and specialized instruction. Students in Autism Connection services are typically on or above grade level, and their strong language skills often support their high academic skills. In particular, students typically have significant strengths in reading comprehension and vocabulary, and often have particular areas of academic interest. Students are often highly motivated to perform well academically, but have challenges with executive functioning skills, which impacts their performance in the curriculum. Although students have strong language skills, they may have difficulty with written language production. They often have good ideas, but have difficulty pulling the information together to begin and complete written work. Socially, students often are motivated to engage with their peers, but encounter challenges due to their social skills needs and cognitive flexibility skills. Next slide, please.
So the students in Autism Connections do need a little bit more intensive services than students in learning and academic disabilities. And specifically, that typically means a little bit more time outside of general education in a smaller self-contained special education class, but it also can mean additional support in general education as compared to what they might have had in LAD. Specifically, at the middle school level, the majority of the students require direct instruction in social interaction skills in a smaller special education class to address peer interactions, get some direct instruction, as well as opportunities for feedback and practice in a more predictable environment, again, outside of the general education setting. In addition, most middle school students also have a resource class, which is pretty similar to what Sarah Kaya was explaining. It is a class where most students are working on executive functioning skills, organizational support for how to manage the workload. Sometimes they might also use some of that time for social problem solving if things have come up during the school day. The one difference between The LAD resource and Autism Connections resource is that we tend to have a lot less time spent on reteaching or pre-teaching academic concepts because the students do have such significant strengths academically. In high school, instruction outside of general education is primarily delivered through resource classes where the focus is really narrowing in on those executive functioning skills and helping students manage that jump in the course load that they experience as they move from middle school to high school. But social skills, problem solving can still be a component of the resource class for students as needed, either for individual students or for small groups of students. In the general education setting, students may and often do require special education support in their core academic classes, including the accelerated middle school classes and the honors high school classes. In addition, in middle school specifically, because PE and health are a required class each year, and students are taking PE and health every day in middle school. So it's a daily class. So students who require it do also receive special education instruction in those classes, usually through a special education paraeducator supporting the PE class, really designed to support social skills and executive functioning. In addition, I do think it's important to note that due to the need for that specially designed instruction to address the IEP goals to support social interaction skills, executive functioning, students, particularly those in middle school, may not always have room in their schedules to have the same elective class choices that other students at their grade level have. We can go ahead and switch to the next slide. And I think I'm introducing the next presenter, Ms. Allison O'Connor, who is a coordinator with the Division of Specialized Support Services.
Going to hear.
I'm sorry, Chris.
That's all right. We were going to hear this evening from Ms. Allison O'Connor, who is another coordinator in the Division of Specialized Support Services. However, I just spoke to her on the phone and she is having mechanical trouble with her car. I wanted to make a transitional statement about ARS. ARS is a service that you're going to hear about next that has traditionally been supported by the Autism Unit directly. However, in alignment with Dr. Taylor's vision for cross-functional teams that are working in collaboration with schools and providing more on the ground in the school support, we've transitioned the support of ARS from the Autism Unit to the cross-functional teams with consultation, support, and collaboration from the Autism Unit, as well as the RITSEs in each school. In Ms. O'Connor's place tonight, you'll hear from Ms. Claire Lanham, instructional specialist in the Autism Unit, who's certainly familiar with ARS.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Again, as Chris said, I'm here to take over for Ms. O'Connor and share a little bit about Autism Resource Services, which we do refer to as ARS, which is another level of service provided to some students. ARS, or Autism Resource Services, is available at the middle school and high school level, spanning grades 6 through 12. Autism Resource Services students typically have needs in both academics and social interaction skills. Our students require special education instruction in order to address both of those significant areas of need. In addition, our students do typically have significant challenges in language, in both receptive and expressive language, as well as the social pragmatic use of language. Therefore, students in ARS typically have relative areas of strengths in the areas of academics that do not require as much language, such as the rote math calculation skills, reading decoding skills, and even spelling, but require more significant specially designed instruction in terms of the application skills of math problem solving, word problems, and reading comprehension. As a result, our students require a mixed approach and access some of their instruction outside of the general education setting and some of their instruction inside of the general education setting. To address their academic needs, our students do need to access the general education standards, and so they sometimes require adjusted pace of instruction, as well as reteaching of previously taught concepts. They also might need an opportunity to reteach concepts and pre-teach vocabulary. To address their social needs, our students typically require direct instruction in social interaction and in social skills, which in ARS takes place in that resource class, which we have heard about already in other services, as well as opportunities for feedback from their staff across the school day in the moment coaching and support surrounding those social skills needs. Special education instruction, as I said, in ARS is provided in a combination of settings, including both general education settings with paraeducator and special education teacher support, as well as some self-contained special education classes. The special education classes are able to provide academic intervention, such as reading instruction, as well as for the English and math classes, typically at the middle school level. Depending on the grade level, special education instruction may be provided outside of general education for some specific academic subjects when students get to the high school level. However, typically for science, social studies, PE, and any elective courses our students take, they are supported in the general education setting with paraeducator and co-teacher support. Due to the need for our students' specially designed instruction to address their IEP goals, some of our students may not have room in their schedule for some elective classes at certain grade levels and may have some limited course options depending on their grade level and school. So now I am going to turn it over to my colleague Lisa Corti to talk about bridge services.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Corti. I'm an instructional specialist. I represent social emotional special education services, which includes bridge services. You can go down to the next slide. Our students in bridge services fall under some of the similar characteristics that students we serve with social emotional needs. Their success is definitely impacted by social emotional concerns, but they tend to be more internalizing students who suffer maybe from some anxiety or other related things that overlay their progress in school. Students in our services, which are some of the most restrictive, are cognitively and academically capable of accessing grade level curriculum with supports, and tend to sometimes even excel in certain areas of interests. Our bridge students tend to need the supports of our social emotional services, such as our social worker, to provide support to navigate the academic day. Next slide. Some of the characteristics that we work with our bridge services, which really overlap with autism or students on the autism spectrum, is that our bridge students have a social vulnerability about them. They tend to do well when they're on their own, but social situations and picking up on social clues or having flexible thinking in situations in middle school and high school, which is where our bridge services start, are difficult for them and might cause them duress or anxiety. Taking other people's perspectives, abstract thinking, interpreting social cues and across different settings and social settings in the academic day, maintaining peer relationships and understanding how to resolve conflicts really impact our bridge students. We really focus on, instead of individual counseling service in bridge services, it's really this group and collaborative learning setting. It's for students who need to understand how to navigate that academic discourse and the academic day to help cope with their school anxiety, just general stressors and things that happen, changes in routine, or different kinds of sensory sensitivities or inputs. Our focus is really working on their individual pragmatic language skills as well as executive functioning skills to help them manage their abilities to be successful in school. Next slide. Because we're some of the most restrictive services in our middle school, we can provide a lot more sheltered instruction outside of the general education setting to kind of promote that academic discourse with support. Small group instruction for the core classes like English, science, math. We also see that our students struggle in PE. So we have a separated out. We do also provide some electives like health or resource, but that's also to help address those social skills and executive functioning pieces along with that needing to, have that group focus. We are also, when we can't provide that sheltered instruction, we have paraeducators who can support students, or if students don't need that instruction for a certain area, they can go out with support of paraeducators who are trained to work with our students. And again, the main focus at the middle school level as well as the high school level is the group counseling. To kind of promote that pragmatic and social language that they need in order to kind of manage their academics. In the high school level, the similar structure about having that sheltered instruction outside of the general education for those core elective academics and some certain electives as students go higher and maybe access things like AP courses or other those pieces, those need to be accommodated in other settings at times with the support of a paraeducator. And we also, again, have that focus on that supporting group counseling services to increase their social understanding and awareness. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. We are going to turn to Q&A now. So I know that there are a lot of questions in the chat. Our facilitator tonight for the Q&A section is former xMinds president, Nora Dudwick. Nora, would you like to turn on your camera?
I believe it is on. No?
Nope.
Oh,
We can
sorry.
hear you.
There we go. Oh, it keeps clicking off. I'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Okay. Okay, so there are a few questions that relate to certificate programs, but I'll come back to that when we do the second portion of the presentation. And some of the questions have already been answered. If you posed a question, check back in the chat, you might see it answered there. So let me start with a question. Please describe how the co-teaching model would look in a general education class. And I think maybe Sarah said a little bit about that, but perhaps you could say more.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that question pop in, so I tried to answer it as I was talking about learning and academic disabilities services. But co-teaching means that there are two adults together in the classroom that share some level of responsibility for co-planning, co-teaching, and co-assessing students. And so in Montgomery County, we have many classes that are supported by a co-teaching model where you have a general educator and a special educator teaching that class side by side so that you have that expert in the content and then that expert in special education. And sometimes we also have classes that have that content specialist, that general educator, and are supported by by a paraeducator. I previously shared what some of those different models could look like, but it could look like anything from 2 teachers delivering that lesson side by side together, to small groups happening in the classroom, to 1 teacher teaching and 1 adult supporting targeted needs of individual students or groups of students within the classroom.
Okay, thank you. So for the presenter on connections, could you give a range of, say, something about the student population in a typical connections middle school grade? So I think range of student population, I think the kinds of students perhaps and their performance level.
So in the presentation, we described that the students are on or above grade level academically. In this, I'm not sure if the question is about the actual like grade levels of the students, so I'll just state that in the self-contained classes, so the resource class and the social skills class, they can be multi-grade level. So there might be 6th and 7th graders in a class together, or 7th and 8th graders. Less commonly, it is possible for there to be 6th, 7th, and 8th. Just depending on the needs of the students in that particular year and those class periods. I did see the question is about the number of students. Currently, there are about 8 to 10 students, sometimes maybe 11 even, in the social skills and the resource classes. The other classes in general education are the same size as any other general education class in a middle school MCPS or a high school MCPS English, math, PE class.
Okay, great. There's a question here, is ARS diploma or certificate bound? And I believe I can answer that. It's a diploma bound program. So regarding LAD, how or who determines placement in the LAD program, the LAD programs, and Autism Connections? And there's a second part. Students transitioning to middle school, can parents engage with the middle school directly regarding the coming school year?
I can answer that. I meant to in the chat. Your child's placement is always determined by your child's IEP team, which includes you as a primary partner. Depending on the services that are determined on the IEP for your student, you may hear or request that a representative from the middle school participate in the IEP and talk about services. I think as parents, you are always welcome to inquire about general characteristics of middle schools, but the IEP team is the vehicle for inviting representatives of specific services in that next environment for your child.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Are parents allowed to visit these different programs?
This year, we'll be rolling out a transition process that will give parents access to different characteristics of each service and school. The school visitation policies are determined by the principal of each school, but for every specific service, there is a different way that we all try to make sure parents have an opportunity to have at least a virtual tour, a Q&A, and sometimes an in-person tour. In-person tours are really disruptive at times to instruction, so we're asking parents not to try to visit multiple services just to get a feeling for it. Rather, work with service representatives to see how we can share more information with you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here's a question from someone who has a middle schooler in an ARS program and asks, do paraprofessionals in the ARS program receive regular professional development since they are often teaching our students? Additionally, are gen ed teachers who teach gen ed students trained in how to teach our kids and give assignments? I have concerns about both because of what I have seen in my child's classes.
I'll start the answer to that, and maybe one of our a cross-functional team member can share what more general training may be planned for the year. So this school year, there has already been training provided in a variety of settings on working with students with autism, working with students in diploma-bound settings. And that has been specific to both teachers and paraeducators. The department or the Division of Specialized Support Services also plans training throughout the year that may be generally relevant, things such as scaffolding assignments, supporting students in a general education classroom, on reading and math support techniques, to more specific, and we may have the opportunity to repeat specific training on supporting students who are autistic.
Okay. Thanks. And there's a related question. I think actually you've just answered that regarding autism training. Okay, let me go back up. Do any of these programs work for PDA kids? I'll just say PDA can be explained as pervasive drive for autonomy or pathological demand avoidance, depending on your perspective. So yeah, which program would work for these kids?
So that's a big topic, and I'm going to give a small answer. The issues around supporting students who are described as PDA are complex and relatively new to our educational settings. We have students in autism services who are described that way by outside professional whose needs are able to be met, and others who are not. Again, it's an individual question, but I don't think that at this time we're stating that we have a specific service that can meet the needs of all PDA students.
Okay, thank you. All right. If I would like to know more about a certain school and whether my child's needs would be best met there, whom can I contact? Can I contact the school?
I'm not sure I understand the question totally. I think that in terms of looking at services, that should align with what we discussed before. What services are being recommended for a student and where can those services be delivered? If a family is interested in the culture and the climate of a school in general, they should reach out to the school and find out what the mechanism is for learning more about the school. But I think people are talking specifically about services, and that's a little different from a school, unless you're talking about one of our self-contained separate public day schools.
Okay. Okay, the next question says, what is the primary difference with the ARS program? I assume what is meant there is what is distinctive about the ARS program as opposed to the other diploma programs.
Yes. For Autism Resource Services, the most distinctive features are the combination of self-contained grade level academics with inclusion academics, in addition to the direct social skills instruction that is provided in the resource class.
Okay, thank you. Okay, can a student attend one of these programs for half the day and be pulled out from a more rigorous one? And be pulled out for more rigorous one-on-one private tutoring for the remaining part of the day?
I'll
Maybe.
take it.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, or Sarah, if you were going to answer, go ahead.
I was going to say MSDE requires that students receive a well-rounded curriculum, which includes the core subjects that secondary students have to take: the math, the English, the science, the social studies, the PE, and the electives, as well as the courses that things like a resource class or a reading intervention that are identified by the IEP team if needed. And so in order to meet the state requirements and provide the specially designed instruction that students need. And in order to have the opportunity to receive a FAPE, students really need to be in school for the full day. Ms. Erickson, did you want to add anything onto that?
No, I didn't. I think you described it very well. Thank you.
Okay. How would you describe the concrete differences between the LAD and Connections program?
The primary difference is really that daily social skills instruction that is part of the Connection service. Many of the other supports and services that are part of Connections are also delivered in learning and academic disabilities. So that primary big piece that makes Connections unique is the daily social skills class, which again takes the place of an elective, but gives the students the opportunity for direct instruction in peer-to-peer interactions, as well as opportunity for guided practice in a predictable setting, and the opportunity to practice those skills throughout the day with some support from the special education staff.
And I think another piece is also that resource class. Sometimes in the LAD resource class, there's a lot of that pre-teaching, reteaching, and that academic intervention in a Connections resource class because our students are on or above grade level and accessing some of those higher level classes. There's not as much of the differentiation and the direct instruction on the academics.
Okay, and relatedly, at the high school level Connections program, is the number of resource classes set? Could you give an example of what a freshman schedule might look like? And are ST, I'm not sure what that is, ST services providing during resource class, or are there additional pullouts? So there are three questions there: number of resource classes, freshman schedule, and ST services.
Sure. So there is no set number of resource classes. I will say that many of our ninth graders take 2 periods of resource in their ninth grade year, just to, particularly in the first semester, just to kind of get them acclimated to high school, adjust to the course load. And then most students will drop down to just 1 resource class in 10th, 11th, and sometimes still in 12th grade. They'll still need that resource class. The one thing that's unique about high school is students' schedules can change from first semester. Students' schedules do change for all students from first semester to second semester. So it is easy for a student to take resource for just the first semester and then move into a PE or an art. Many of them do not require that you took the fall class in order to participate in the spring class. So for most ninth graders, they would have the 4 core academics, so English, math, science, and social studies. They would have 1 or 2 periods of resource and then 1 or 2 classes that they would choose. We could describe them as electives, but they are often classes that fulfill a graduation requirement. So PE, students are required to take 1 year of PE, 1 year of a fine arts, 1 year of a technology. So we usually do encourage that they pick a class in an area of interest, but also one that will fulfill a graduation requirement like the arts or the technology. I'm guessing ST services are related to speech and language therapy. I'm guessing it means speech therapy services.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, then somebody can put it, correct me. But for many students, they are provided during the resource class because the rest of the day, it's hard to pull a student out of a general education science class or an English class. They're missing instruction. But it is very much individualized for students. So some students, it might be pull out during the resource time. For other students, it might be plug in support during a class that has a lot of group work, and the students have the opportunity to have the speech and language therapists provide instruction in instruction in goals around pragmatic language. But again, it's very individualized. There's no one consistent answer for student speech services.
Okay, thank you. Also on Connections, are Connections students at a higher academic level than LAD students? This is the part I am confused about.
Sure. So connection students are typically on or above grade level in their academic subjects. They do tend to lean towards more the above grade level, whereas LAD students, and Sarah, you can correct me if or jump in and piggyback, but LAD students are going to be more students with a range. So you might have certainly students who are on or above grade level, but you'll also have students who require some academic intervention for specific academic weaknesses.
I would say students in connections really require that social skill component. And so we may have students who are on to above grade level in LAD services and are impacted by their disabilities in other ways. But really that social skill instruction is a hallmark of a student who would require services and connections. Would you agree, Miss Daisy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do students with autism sometimes end up in other special education programs or classes that are not aimed at autism?
Absolutely. We have students who are autistic accessing services everywhere from our separate public day schools to students who are receiving a minimal resource IEP in their neighborhood schools.
Okay. Do we know what special education services will be provided in Crown High School?
I'm going to say that we do. I wonder if Ms. Langston knows. I don't have, I tried to pull the document up to reference it, and I can't at the moment. That is a question we can follow up on, but there are special education services planned for Crown.
Okay. My high schooler can no longer physically get to school because of anxiety and executive dysfunction. He can handle his academic level, but although he's calm, he needs support once in school to focus, organize, and manage anxiety. What would be the program for him?
I think it would be difficult for us to make any sort of recommendation or comment on that, as it's very specific to a specific profile of student. However, that would be an IEP team decision, and that, again, that least restrictive environment conversation would be driven by the specific services that would address your student's current challenges.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to combine, there was one question on how long do students stay in these programs, but I'm going to combine it with another one, which says, please clarify the placement, review, and reassessment process, particularly with regard to high school. Is it every year, every 2 years, or once a student is placed in a program such as Connections for 9th grade? Does that mean that is the program the student will be in for the following 4 years?
I can take this. All components of the IEP are reviewed at a minimum yearly, so an annual review is required, but an IEP team can convene at any time at the request of the parent or the school team, and anytime the IEP team meets, the full IEP is considered, which includes placement discussions. So things can be reevaluated based on progress on goals, present levels of performance, any sort of data that is being shared by team members can make a consideration for placement. So certainly if a student enters into a certain set of services that is not forever, those things can always be reconsidered. I believe that answered all components of the question, but let me know if it didn't.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to interrupt 1 second. We are at 8:05. And I'm wondering if we can wait until the next Q&A session to get to the other questions.
I think we can, because some of them, some of the questions posed earlier had to do with diploma, and some are maybe more general, and we can leave them for the very end.
Okay.
So I think we can move on.
All right, great. So then the next half of tonight's presentation is going to introduce alternate learning outcome services, or ALO. And I believe, is it Claire? or sorry, who is,
I'm Ashley Doyle. I'm the Special Education
okay,
Supervisor
all
for
right.
Alternate Learning Outcome Services.
I wasn't sure if you were here. Hello, Ashley. Yeah, so why don't you go ahead with.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for having me this evening. In Alternate Learning Outcome Services, or the acronym ALO, serve students who are working on the alternate framework for their instruction and or assessment. We have specialized services in a continuum, specifically learning for independent services, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, school community-based services, extension services, and there'll be a portion that my colleagues will come on about autism services for students who are on the alternate framework. And we'll also discuss a separate special education school that we have as well, Rock Terrace. All right, so a little bit more about ALO is for our students who are accessing the alternate achievement standards. Our students are found eligible through a process and a guidance document we refer to as Appendix A. Appendix A is a very comprehensive tool designed by the Maryland Department State of Education that goes through very specific criteria when we suspect that a student has a significant cognitive disability, which affects a person's learning needs across all domains of their educational needs. A big part of the focus for the curriculum is on essential pieces or essential elements that do align to the curriculum, but they are significantly modified and individualized based on the student's specific needs. The skills are taught in context with opportunities for instruction in large and small groups. And then another component of our alternate learning outcomes instruction encompass community-based instruction to support the generalization of skills and provide real experiential learning. Next slide. It's important to know that the alternate achievement standards are the standards for the instruction. It is not a separate curriculum. So on the screen is an example at the secondary level of the grade level standards. The CCSS stands for the Common Core State Standards. And so you'll see on the left an example of a 9th to 10th grade leveled standard under key ideas and details. And on the right, you're going to see what we call the essential elements from the dynamic learning maps, which are the key components of the standards and what we would focus on in terms of the instruction. A little bit more about Learning for Independent Services, known about LFI. These are services designed for students in grades, we are talking about secondary, but we start in kindergarten through age 21, who have significant cognitive disabilities and are pursuing alternate learning outcomes aligned with the Maryland Alternate Academic Achievement Standards. The students participate in real-world learning in the school and community settings with opportunities to participate in instructional experiences with their non-disabled peers. To add on, students follow the school bell schedule and change classes each period. Most core classes are self-contained and taught by a special education teacher. Students are typically included in PE electives with same age peers, and the instruction is primarily whole group and small group instruction. When it comes to community-based instruction at the secondary level, students are participating at least 2 times a week. High school students are also participating in on-the-job training, and depending on the student's grade level and their interest and the specific student-based skills, there are on-site and off-site opportunities. Student characteristics of who we serve in Learning for Independence include all students who have significant cognitive disabilities. Again, the students are primarily independent in their classroom routines. have a combination of communication needs, which is pretty diverse and multimodal. We do serve multiple disabilities in this setting, which does include autism and other areas of disability impact. There is also a need across the settings in learning for independence for social interactions and navigating unfamiliar and familiar settings around social vulnerabilities. Next slide. Another service in our continuum for students who have more complex cognitive disabilities and more combination of multiple and severe cognitive and or other areas of impact. A lot of the instructional setting domain is similar to learning for independence. However, the classes are self-contained in content areas and specials, and this is dependent on student-specific needs. There are opportunities for inclusion based on students' IEPs. There is, again, whole and small group instruction. The pacing for instruction is significantly adjusted, and more individualized modifications to the curriculum are expected. Community-based instruction, our students do participate 2 times or more per week. Our high school students also are participating in on-the-job training, both on and off-site opportunities. So the characteristics for the services are, again, all students have significant cognitive disabilities. Many students have emerging communication systems or very diverse communication needs. There is a need for direct instruction to master response methods. Students require support to participate in classroom and personal management routines. Students are requiring support in most activities of daily living, and we serve a variety of disabilities in school community-based services, in addition to students who do and do not have autism. And I'm going to pass to Ms. Rattan and Ms. Lanham.
Hi, I'm Kristen Rattan. I am a program specialist with Autism Services, and I support many of our middle and high school classic autism service locations. My colleague Claire Lanham, who you've heard from already, is actually going to start us off with talking about some of our student characteristics and the service model.
Hi, everyone. Good evening again. Claire Lanham, instructional specialist with Autism Services, and I, along with Kristen, support many of our secondary classic autism sites this year. We've touched on this a few times this evening, but it does bear mentioning again that although most of the students in Autism Services may have a diagnosis of autism, that diagnosis does not drive services and placement. It is a common misconception that all students with autism are served in a discrete autism service or a discrete service, but that is really not the case. Currently in Montgomery County Public Schools, there are 5,610 students with a primary disability code on their IEP of autism. However, only 1,019 of those students are currently served in a discrete autism service. So that's just a reminder, which is some of the questions we had in the chat again. So it just sort of touches on some of those thoughts that you may be having about placement for your student. So the students who are best served in classic autism services have significant needs in the areas of adaptive skills, behavior, and also in communication. When we think about adaptive skills that our students are still working on, can include their self-care skills, their communication skills, their self-direction skills, social and leisure skills, as well as home and school living, functional academics, community use, work, and health and safety. Oftentimes, our students do need support to be able to interact with the world around them. In terms of behavior, our students do present with a wide range of challenging behaviors that can really vary wildly, from self-stimulatory behaviors, social behaviors, self-injurious behavior, and students who do engage in highly physical behaviors and need direct support at school to address those behaviors in order to be able to access their curriculum. In terms of communication, our students are still working on self-advocacy, having functional communication systems that they're able to use across settings, those social communication skills and the ability to communicate with those around them. And it is all really based on the individual needs of the learners in our classrooms. The students in autism services are accessing the alternate learning outcomes, which Ms. Doyle summarized for us, and are pursuing that certificate of completion. Our students are very likely to stay in high school until that age of 21, and most of our students do articulate after they age out of Montgomery County Public Schools into adult day services for lifelong support.
So looking a little bit more specifically at some of the student characteristics of our learners in our classic autism services, as Claire touched on, they really do require direct instruction in a really structured, systematic way to acquire skills that will be functional for them. Some of those functional skills that we will often focus on in our classic autism classrooms at the middle and high school level include, in addition, of course, to all of those academic skills, we're often focusing on foundational skills in the area of communication and behavior. As Ms. Lana mentioned, students in classic autism skills typically require highly structured, individualized positive behavior supports, including that direct teaching of those functional communication and productive behavioral skills. Our students also require a highly modified pace, that systematic, repetitive instruction, and of course, their individual accommodations. They benefit from extensive, direct, repeated, and individualized instruction to achieve measurable gains on their IEP goals and objectives, and of course, to access the curriculum. Some features on the next slide of what those services look like are that in the classic autism services, students receive most of their academic instruction, so those core academic reading, math, and written language areas are taught in a self-contained special education setting, along with instruction related to more of their activities of daily living skills, or ADLs. This continues from middle school into the high school setting, and as our students become older, there's more expanding of that focus onto functional skills and building their independence as we prepare them to graduate and transition to life after high school. The instructional model and supports in classic autism services are drawn from evidence-based autism-specific strategies. In terms of what the day looks like, students may have the opportunity to participate in some general education setting instruction during an elective class, for lunch, or out in the community. We also think of as accessing some peers out at our jobs as we're doing those work-based learning experiences. Inclusion opportunities are always based on individual student strengths and needs. Students in classic autism do have opportunities to interact with peers throughout the school day, both through those inclusive opportunities when appropriate, as well as through programs like Best Buddies, peer programs, student interns who plug into our autism classrooms, lunch opportunities for assemblies, pep rallies. There are corollary sports programs at a lot of our high schools as well. Specific programs vary by school, but there are those opportunities at all of the schools. Social skills is another area that we work on in our classic autism services. They're supported through, again, those foundational communication and social interaction skills, which we target individually through direct instruction that's based on an individual student's IEP goals. We really work hard to support those skills across the school day and focus on generalization and interaction with both adults, staff members, as well as with peers. Students are provided, as Ms. Doyle shared with us earlier, access to alternate academic learning outcomes that are aligned with the MCPS curricula. Students receive that intensive instruction that we've described based on the principles of applied behavior analysis. And for the 25-26 school year, our current school year, our goal has been to serve approximately 6 to 7 students with 1 teacher and 2 paraeducators, although this may vary slightly across the county from classroom to classroom. So I'm going to pass things, I believe, back to Ms. Doyle to share information about extension services.
Thank you very much. All right, next slide. So Extension Services is a highly supportive, specialized service for students with the most intensive, challenging behaviors, in addition to working on the alternate framework for their instruction. Part of the instructional setting differences or characteristics are that the instruction is self-contained in all core content areas and in all specials. During instruction, it's either whole group learning, small group, and individualized instruction. There are additional behavioral and social work supports for students and families because of the high level needs of our students. In addition, we also incorporate community-based instruction 2 times or more per week for our secondary learners. High school students are also participating in on-the-job training, both on-site and off-site opportunities based on the student needs, interests, and sites within their educational experiences. Characteristics for students that we serve in extensions are inclusive of students who have that significant cognitive disability, the emerging communication system. The response system is also typically emerging for our students in extension services. Many students that we serve are requiring support in most activities of daily living, whether that's their personal care routines or personal management routines. And then students are requiring additional and intensive supports to address challenging behaviors in both responsive and supportive practices throughout the day or as needed. Some students are who require this support are engaging in either self-injurious behaviors at a very high rate where they're hurting themselves, or they may be expressing injurious behaviors or externalizing behaviors towards others, whether that is impacting staff or students outside of themselves, but they need a very high level of supportive and responsive strategies to support, redirect, and teach replacement strategies to be the most successful in that setting, and of course, maintain and support a safe learning environment. Next slide. Oh, excuse me. Before I pass on to my colleagues about the Rock Terrace School, I do want to share for the 25-26 school year, our goal is to support approximately 6 to 7 students with 1 teacher and 3 paraeducators, although this may vary across the county. All right, next slide. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Megan Viganic. I am the school psychologist at Rock Terrace School, and I am joined this evening by Mr. Casey Siddons. He's our acting principal this year. So I'm going to share with you some information that may sound a little familiar, compared to some of our other programs. But what's really unique about Rock Terrace School is we are a separate public day school. That means that 100% of our students have significant cognitive disabilities, have high support needs, have IEPs, and we do not have inclusion opportunities within Rock Terrace School. So that's really one of the key differences. Majority of our students at this point are pursuing alternate learning outcomes. Again, we are a self-contained setting. What's unique about our program right now is we do operate on a multi-period day that allows our students some independence and flexibility to transition within our small, low ratio specialized setting. Our instruction focuses on whole and small group opportunities, and we do have additional behavioral and social emotional support available. All of our students participate in community-based or on-the-job training. Our middle and high school program goes out once a week for community-based instruction. Our older students, we'll talk about them briefly. In upper school, they are on the job 4 days a week, either on campus or as they matriculate through the program off campus. Our goal is ultimately to prepare our students for, maximum independence that's right for them to participate fully in the community, both socially for recreation activities, but also for vocational activities. So again, our students do have significant cognitive disabilities, meaning they are eligible for those alternate learning outcomes. Our student population spans the ages of 11 to 21. Our students generally have a pretty reliable communication system that they utilize with support, multimodal communication. We have students who are using verbal communication, verbal speech, but also students who are using assistive technology and augmentative communication, again, with a range of support needs. Our students typically have a generally consistent response method, again, with support, and we're looking for some of those group learning behaviors, being able to be in a classroom with peers and navigate a school building. Some of our students require more or less support with that transition, and we aim to build those skills. One of the unique things about Rock Terrace is that our students tend to have high support needs regarding social, emotional, and behavioral skills. And we're staffed to support that. So on the next slide, we will see some more information about who our students are. So again, our students are working on building their independence and consistent demonstration of adaptive skills, those self-care skills, health and safety skills, recreation leisure skills, etc. Our students do have a behavioral and emotional regulation needs. And typically it's those emotion and behavior regulation needs that may make it so that the IEP team decides that a self-contained separate public day school setting is most appropriate at that time in a student's life. Our students have communication and social interaction needs, as well as cognitive and learning needs. So again, our students are transitioning throughout the building to their academic and elective classes. We have PE, culinary arts, performing arts, art, and our media specialist. Our goal is to really work on community access skills, vocational skills, social emotional skills. Also, those soft skills that help students after they graduate from us to access a whole range of adult services. Our students are likely to stay through age 21. We do have some students who over time with support require less restrictive environments, and we are always looking to increase our inclusion opportunities and matriculate back to a less restrictive setting if that's what's required for the student. Our school is divided into 4 sections. We have a middle school program, high school, and upper school. Upper school serves students ages 18 to 21, We also have a special set of services called extended transition. So Mrs. Doyle just explained extensions services. There are some students whose behavioral needs have decreased such that they are ready for more off-site job training experiences, and they may be best served in our extended transitions program. And I see in the chat, I think there's definitely overlap here as it relates to on-the-job training. I know that's something that's a priority for all of our services, and transition is going to speak in a little while and maybe able to address that in more depth. We can go on to the next slide. So our learners at Rock Terrace really require teaching, practice, reinforcement opportunities to acquiring generalized skills, not just academic skills, not just social skills, but really the regulation skills and those reciprocal communication skills. Our students do need that modified pace and complexity of the curriculum. And at Rock Terrace, we have school level supports in place. We have grade level supports in place and individual supports for our students to safely and effectively interact and engage with others, to really focus on the skills that our students have in their repertoire that we need to build to mastery, to proficiency, and to build consistency. So we are looking for our students to build both academic skills as well as build independence with functional tasks. So our school at this point, we're generally, staffed at about 8 students per subject with 1 teacher and 1 paraeducator. We also have students who require a bit more adult support than that, so there are additional paras in many of our classes. Our electives are a little bit bigger for the 25 to 26 school year. And we are one school in North Bethesda that serves learners from the entire county. So we have students coming from all over. So we are also always looking to support families in connecting with resources that are local to their community for needs outside of school. So a bit of an overview or summary. Functional academics are a priority for us, as well as the adaptive skills. We've got class time dedicated to transition skills, community-based instruction, and social skills. We're really trying to build the pre and vocational skills to maximize that independence post-21. We have some specialized services that are unique to Rock Terrace. We have a part-time counselor, a full-time school psychologist, a full-time school social worker. We have the support of a full-time behavior support teacher, and we have a whole team of related service providers. So we really are rich in human resources that can work together and collaborate as a team to meet the needs of our individual students. So I will pass it to Ms. Cochran to talk about transition.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm happy to be here to talk to you about transition services. We are a little bit different than the more discrete services that you have been hearing about all evening, because every student who has an IEP has transition services as part of that IEP beginning at the age of 14. So if your child is younger than 13, you probably don't know much about us, but if your child is 13 going on 14, transition services will become part of the plan moving forward from 14 through the time they graduate from school, be that after 4 years of high school or at the age of 21. So we work with both diploma-bound and with certificate-bound students. Next slide, please. We are an outcome-based set of services. We have a coordinated set of activities that are designed to support the IEP process and your students' goals for post-secondary opportunities. And again, that is across the spectrum. We have students who may be going on to four-year colleges. We have students who are going on to adult services. And we help students prepare for those. We help families navigate the steps from the entitlement services of the school system to the eligibility-based services post-secondary. Next slide, please. It is a continuous process. It's not a one and done. Throughout high school, it is collaborative. You parents are an essential partner in this process, and we are always seeking your input and guidance because you know your child best. But the student is always the key decision maker. We are mandated to work from the student's perspective. So even all of our assessments and what we put on the IEP really is based on student assessments that we complete. And that is, again, from our students who are diploma bound and also our alternative learning outcomes students. Next slide, please. There are a lot of people involved with this. So we in transition services may write that plan, but again, we look at your input, we look at the case manager, we look at the resource class where students are learning those independent living and social skills. We are very involved in the work-based learning. Quite often in the high schools, our transition support teachers are setting up those work-based learning opportunities and monitoring them for the students and staff. So there are several different partners who participate in this. Next slide, please. So again, transition starts at the age of 14, and we start by assessing interests and abilities. This can include self-advocacy instruction, independent living instruction, work-based learning experiences and job coaching, and linking students to community and adult services. And that is another big piece to what we do. So yes, we work directly with the students, but we also work very closely with the families as you navigate those next steps for your student. We also, in the middle school, this is where the conversation about diploma and earning a Maryland Certificate of Program Completion, or the certificate program. This is, a big part of that conversation. So typically, Transition Services is engaged in that conversation with you. Next slide, please. For Transition Services, we have one middle school liaison for all 47 middle schools. So the direct service is really to support staff. We have one individual. Some of you may know her. She is fabulous, Miss Diane Flood. Diane works with every middle school IEP team to develop the transition plan, to start that off. She also works individually with parents and families as you may start to navigate that application process for post-secondary developmental disability administration services, or those adult services. Next slide, please. Once you get to high school, it changes a little bit. Every high school in Montgomery County has a transition support teacher. Some of our larger schools with a larger student body working towards the alternative learning outcomes may have 1.5. 2 of our schools actually have 2 transition support teachers. If you have a high school age student, you may have heard the term TST. That's who we are, Transition Services Team. So the intent is that we become more actively involved, and we provide more service to students and to families as your child ages through the high school years. Everything we do is really based on MSDE's Secondary Transition Planning Guide, which is linked here. Next slide, please. Again, we look at that student goals. What are the post-secondary education? And that can be from going to College Park, University of Maryland, College Park for a degree program, or now it can be going to University of Maryland for TERP Succeed, which is their certificate program. Fabulous new program. Many MCPS students there, including 3 students who graduated with certificates last year. We also work with the employment process. We work with that both in school, so that work-based learning on a variety of levels, and also helping navigate the supports that may be needed beyond high school for employment. We also look at a combination of post-secondary education and employment, training, apprenticeships, militaries. We really start with, what is your child's goal? What is your goal for your child? And that is our starting point annually. So every year we come together, we start this conversation again. Next slide, please. Another very big part, as I said, of our role is to assist you in navigating the next steps. We understand that this is a challenge for many families, because in a school system, you come to the school, you have the services are mostly provided there, you meet annually, things are determined at that point, and your child is entitled to those services. That all kind of goes away after your child graduates from high school. So everything is eligibility based. So you will have to apply for those services. So the primary linkages that we assist families in navigating are the Division of Rehabilitation Services, or DOORS. These are acronyms you'll get to know. DOORS provides short-term employment services. The nice thing about DOORS is there are 2 sets of services that we refer students to. The first one is called Pre-Employment Transition Services, or PREETS, that's kind of their acronym. All students age 14 and above, actually, who have an IEP are eligible for PREETS services. So it's a really nice addition, an intro to kind of the workforce while your child is in high school. There are a variety of different opportunities growing all the time for those PREETS services. Your transition support teacher in your child's high school can help you navigate that, can help you apply for those services or be referred to those services. and help you select the appropriate one for your child. And then they have their student employment services, formerly called their vocational rehabilitation services. These are services that may be applied for when your child is finishing out their high school career and you're looking for supports that will carry them beyond high school, be that training or job supports. A very large one for our students on the alternative learning framework is the Developmental Disability Administration. These are those lifelong adult services that you have been hearing about all evening. That is a process. We tend to start it young. We prefer to start when if your child has not applied by the time they're in 9th grade and has a diagnosed cognitive disability, then we will assist you in applying for those services. And as your child ages, we assist you in this multiple steps to make sure that by the time they finish high school, they are ready to enter these adult services that you have selected. And then the third one is Behavioral Health Administration. For us here in Montgomery County, that is primarily Cornerstone Montgomery, that has some very nice transitioning youth opportunities for students with emotional dysregulation. Next slide, please. So in transition services, we also provide some other types of opportunities other than just our transition support teachers in the buildings. We have a program called Exploring Careers. This is an option for our primarily seniors or those students who might need that 5th year to finish up their credits to graduate with a diploma and may have an internship or a job, an employment component to their completer, their high school completer. Our Exploring Careers program, there's currently one teacher, 2 paraeducators, 2.5 paraeducators actually, who provide one-to-one support for these students in internship and paid employment options around the county. So that incorporates travel training to and from and supporting them in those internships and jobs. And then we have our off-site classes. These are 2 sets of classes, our Transition Training for Independence and our Community Career Connections. They're 2, that's kind of a leveled set of services. And these are for students 18 to 21 who have demonstrated an ability to be in the community safely, who have demonstrated interest in spending more time in the the work-based learning opportunities and learning how to navigate the community. They are not held in a high school. We have 3 classes in TTI and 3 classes in CCC. One of each up county, mid county, and down county. If you want to know more about that, they are linked here, but your transition support teacher can also assist you in learning more about that as well. And then we provide some summer opportunities. These are just 2 of them. We have one of those doors, PREETS grants, and for the past 8 years now, we've been able to provide a really nice 4 to 5 week program every summer for our rising 10th and 11th graders who are diploma bound. And this is specifically for students who don't have the time in their schedule as they might have 2 resources. So having time for work-based learning, having time to learn how to navigate the community, having time to learn how to ride a bus independently, they don't really have that during the school year. So our PREETS program is housed at Montgomery College. It is funded by DOORS. We coordinate, manage it, and provide the staffing, staffed by special educators and in collaboration with Montgomery College. So it's a really nice opportunity. Again, it's for our diploma-bound students, rising 10th and 11th graders. There are some a student has to be able to demonstrate safety in the community prior to joining us because it is almost 100% community-based. And then our second one is the Montgomery College Assistance Day for graduating seniors. We hold it at Montgomery College in Rockville, and our staff work with MC admitting staff to assist students one-on-one with any of the issues that they might have or stumbling blocks they may have to getting themselves into the door at Montgomery College. That can be an application, that can be the financial aid process, that can be applying for disability support services. So, we try to create these opportunities for our diploma-bound students whom we know really spend so much time working on their academics, they may not have time for these during the school year. Next slide, please. In addition, we offer several opportunities for parents to learn more about the processes. We have our tips and transition times meetings. We offer 10 of those a year. Tomorrow night, we are hosting one on self-directed services, which is one of the DDA, Developmental Disability Administration Services opportunities. It's a parent network parent panel that will talk about their experience with self-directed services. Last month we had an adult service provider fair with over 60 adult service providers attending, and September we did it was SSI and SSDI, and in December it'll be college night, where we'll talk about both the degree programs and non-degree programs in college. So you're always welcome to join us. These are all listed on our webpage as well, MCPS Transition Services. They are all linked here. Just register using the QR code. Next slide, please. New this year, we are trying to improve our outreach to all families, and know that sometimes some of our bigger events, such as our TIPS events, may be a little bit overwhelming for some folks. So we have monthly coffees that are in person. They are held in the morning. We just had one last month down in Silver Spring. This month it will be held in Rockville, and next month it'll be up in Germantown. Then we'll rotate through again. And it's a one-to-one support for families to receive support completing that DDA application. We will work through it with you. We will get the signatures we need, and we can access, the IEP and other things, and right on the spot submit those to DDA. So we have already found in our first one, it was quite successful. It is next Friday, the 21st. So I'm actually excited for that one. This QR code will give you the link to register for that as well. And next slide. Okay, I think that's about it. Here are resources. We provide several resources from several different agencies. Again, we provide services for students throughout the special education spectrum. And I believe that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cochran. So now we're at our Q&A section. This is your opportunity to ask questions about all the certificate-bound programs that you heard about, as well as transition services, or any leftover questions you have about any of the programs that were discussed tonight. Nora will once again facilitate.
Okay, I think this could apply to both sections. Which of all these programs does the RICA school provide?
I'm hoping that Ms. Langston, who was very recently the principal of RICA,
sorry,
can address that. RICA is a separate school that does not provide any of the specific services that we've described this evening. Is Ms. Langston with us?
I think she's trying to unmute.
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
Awesome.
Yes, RICA does have students with autism services, but they also have a disability code of social emotional needs as well. And so RICA does serve students with both of those disability codes, and they provide the services for them Very similar to Rock Terrace with a team that has the social emotional support. There are licensed school social workers. There are also clinical psychologists and clinical psychiatrists there to help support the whole student. So they will provide a whole approach with the family that includes a team of supports that includes the school team, the parent, the student, if they need residential services, which is one thing that's different from the other schools. There's a residential portion for RICA for students who may need 24-hour care, which, based off their individual team, will determine if they are a candidate for that whole approach of that 24 hours, as well as the psychiatrist that is doing the medication management, as well as the psychologist who is also looking at the individual needs of that student to determine if there is services needed more than what the school day can provide. Students who may enter into the residential program are not there forever. Some students may be there in the residential program for a year, some may go longer. Some students do get very comfortable and enjoy being in the residential program and graduate from RICA being a part of the residential program. And then some students, as they become more adaptable to the supports and the processes that they need to maintain their medication management, utilizing the coping strategies and skills that they learn along the way, can begin to reduce the need of services that they have, and also reduce the need of services that they have at RICA, which is a self-contained school. So they may begin to mainstream, which is called going back to a lower level of support, which may mean they are going into an SESES or a bridge program at the local high school. And then some students may eventually go back to their high school full-time to graduate from their actual program. And the same could be for middle school, could go into to their high school as well. But most of the time, middle school will go to high school and then start to transition later. I know it's a little long-winded, but yes, autism students are served at RICA as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, what distinguishes the student profile between the SCB and classic autism services?
I'd like to respond to that a little. That's a very individualized question, but very broadly speaking, there's certainly overlap between students who might be served in either service. When we're talking about an autistic child who requires a high level of support and has a significant cognitive disability, we may be considering either service. Some of our students ultimately may move back and forth between services, but the main characteristics or the determining characteristics for placement between one or the other has to do typically with the type of specially designed instruction a student needs. Do they need that repetitive, specific instruction we discussed earlier, or the more naturalistic teaching we talked about when we talked about school community-based or LFI? Some of our students are frustrated by an intensive teaching model that might be found in an autism service. Some of our students in school community-based may actually need a more specific and repeated methodology than they get in SCB. One of the main distinguishing characteristics of a child who may be more successful in one service than the other is the presence of interfering behavior and the degree to which they need specific intervention to support that. The students in school community-based are a more heterogeneous population. So we have students who have autism, but students who have other specific challenges. And we want to make sure that we have a good peer group match and the presence of interfering behaviors and the degree to which a student is socially motivated and able to learn from a more natural model is probably the primary way we start to talk. And then we talk very individually about your child.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, for Rock Terrace, how do you support emotional regulation? For example, do you have on-site therapies such as occupational therapy?
So I answered this in the chat, and I think some of this applies to all of us here, that Ultimately, the related services your child requires are outlined in your child's IEP. So certainly any child who requires occupational therapy, speech language therapy, counseling as a related service, we're going to provide that with our team of related service providers. More generally at Rock Terrace, we really do have an emphasis on explicitly teaching and practicing regulation skills throughout the school day. So as a small example, we tend to use zones of regulation. Our teachers are building in a check-in and using that information to make adjustments to demands and tasks that are required and what's available based on a student's needs at the time. So we do have a whole wellness team, as other schools tend also do. So we have services available to students at the individual level, the group level, and then we're also thinking school-wide about social emotional learning supports.
Okay, thank you. Melanie, do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, why don't you do
Okay.
one last question?
Okay. Does MCPS offer a transition class for 9th grade students? I'm thinking maybe that's referring to the 10th and 11th grade summer programs. And the second part of the question is, are transition program services offered mostly by external organizations?
So is there a transition class going into 9th grade? There is typically at the 8th grade transition IEP meeting, the high school resource teacher, the case manager may be part of that meeting as well to introduce the student to high school. I will say we did run what is called a Rising 9th grade summer program for several years, but found over the past 2 or 3 years, kind of after COVID, our enrollment was so low that it was not sustainable. So we stopped running those. So we don't run it for 9th grade, but we do for the 10th, 11th, and then our 12th graders. We pick them up with a college program. And then and I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure about that second part to the question.
Are transition program services offered mostly by external organizations? I assume they're thinking about DOORS and DDA.
Right. Okay. So those are our linkages. So we refer to those, but what happens during the school day, the course of the school day, the transition support teacher is school-based, so they are school staff, and the activities that make up the IEP plan happen during the school day.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Melanie, I think over to you.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our presenters for answering our questions tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And once again, thank you to MCPS staff for sharing this important information with all of us. Have a good night.